Hello, welcome to the third lecture of the Introduction to Research Techniques Level 1. You are today on the track to this peak of truth. So this is where you want to go, because research is a process to create and accumulate knowledge. And in this process, basically, you want to get as close as possible to the truth, which is going to be a long path through these different steps. And the step we are currently in, and I will discuss today, is the preparation. And we are going, by the end of this lecture today, we will get closer to gathering findings and especially resources. This is the last slide of the previous lecture. So that was the assignment for this week. You were asked to find a topic and to answer different questions regarding the validity of this project, condense it into a general question, and so on and so forth. Some of you came with really interesting projects, and there is one that I want to use as a practical case for you to demonstrate how this kind of idea can be developed and put into a research project. So one of the classmates came and asked about business, more specifically Afghan women and business. So this answers the first of the question that were to be asked. Afghan women and business, and the validity of this topic is especially in the current situation in Afghanistan, that if women can do the business, if they can alone get some income for them and for their family, it will provide them with independence, life quality, and a better psychological stability. On a more global level for the region and the country, it will also make the region more prosperous, because the women are going to use this money to purchase goods, purchase food, and this is going to be a flux of income into the economy of the village, of the city. On a more global scale, unfortunately, this kind of situation occurs in many different regions of the world, not necessarily in countries where the situation is as extreme as in Afghanistan, but in many countries the situation of women is more difficult. And answering the question regarding Afghan women is likely to find applications in other regions of the world. So how can we condense it? There are many ways to condense it, especially it will depend on the interest behind, on the purpose behind the question. And I chose a kind of smashing question, say, business women, how to be clandestine and successful. Because this is typically the paradox of Afghan women, so that they need to be successful, no? They need to be able to bring money home, but in a clandestine way. The next point is to define the constraints. They are quite obvious. No access to official data, so you cannot ask statistics from the government. Above all, safety consideration for you, for the people you may interview. But you have also, of course, no fundings, so we are all alone but you have access to past studies, and I will show you how. And you have access to a network of Afghan women who are, I think, quite willing and determined to help. So even though these first constraints are really high, these second two are much more strong, much stronger than you may imagine. So defining these constraints lead us to specifying the question. And for many of you, this was a difficult point. So I want to spend a bit more time on this. Specifying the question means making it doable. So given the constraints you have, there are, of course, because of these constraints, there are things you cannot do, okay? So you cannot go, for instance, to the government and ask, I need the statistics about women working. You cannot do that, okay? And just, for instance, this forbids you to do different types of analysis. But it does not mean that you cannot do anything. So if you look, for instance, at this big circle, this big sphere here, imagine that this is all the businesses by all the women in every city and every village in Afghanistan. There are many cities, and there are many villages, and there are many types of businesses. Is that going to be agriculture, retail, education, health, many types of businesses. So of course, you are not going to study all of them, just at least because of the constraint you currently have. But you see this small circle here, this is the kind of circle that you can study. You have some freedom, it's not big, but it's there. And this is what you can study now. So the idea, specifying the question means, okay, what can I study here in this small circle? And I will give you an example. It can be, we are going to investigate the case and the methods of 8 Afghan women in Kabul in this year, 2024, in the business of retail. So we see that here we started with a really general question. So what is, how can Afghan women do business? And then we focus on something really precise. We are in Kabul now, not 20 years ago, not even last year or 10 years in the future. Today, in a specific type of business with a specific sample. Here I said 8, I just picked this number, but it's mostly related to this size here. So how many person can you know directly or indirectly? So when you do that, I mean when you study this small world compared to the big one, you make the assumption that by studying this, it will give you some idea about the big circle. So you make the hypothesis, the assumption that this is representative of a larger population. It's not necessarily. It could be wrong. For instance, if you study women in Kabul, probably that they are different from the situation of women in really small villages in the mountain, in the Kandahar provinces, in some regions where the customs are much more different, where the prosperity is different. So maybe it's not going to be a good assumption for this, but it's going to be a good assumption. So for instance, Mazar Sharif, Herat, Jalalabad, so for the big cities, for a certain profile. And remember that you will have to argue about this assumption. So if you study that and and you are asked, why did you study that? And you said, well, that's the only thing I could study. It's a valid answer, but it's not enough. You will say, okay, I could not do more. And on the top of that, what I did is valuable because it's a representation of the overall population. What I mean by representation, think about your family. If I don't know the complete Afghan population, but I look at your family, maybe I will have some idea. Not completely true, but not completely wrong of how Afghan population look like. Maybe from the color of the hair, from the size, from some customs, way of living. It's not going to represent 100% of the population, but it's going to go in the right direction. Another point to keep in mind is that you see that this small circle here is what you can do today. It does not mean that you will stay here for the rest of your life, because things evolve. Imagine that, for instance, you get a fellowship in a university, and now you are abroad, and you have access to research departments. Cool situation. Then you will be able to have access to more data, maybe fundings, colleagues working. Okay, this is going to make the circle bigger. But even in this situation, the circle will never be completely the same as the yellow one. The circle you study is never going to be everything. So of course it's bigger, but it's always going to be much smaller. So even when you are in this golden situation, you will have to argue about the assumption. Why did you make this assumption? And why this assumption is valid? Why does it make your analysis valuable for the understanding of everything? I hope that this clarified this point of the specification of the question. So once this is done, and for instance, we are going to study these women in the retail in Kabul. Before you start, I strongly advise to do documentation, we could say bibliography. And the reason is that you are very likely not to be the first one to have to work on this subject, or a subject really close. So for instance, maybe people worked on this subject, but it's in Pakistan and not in Afghanistan. So you'll say, okay, it's not the same, but maybe you can have some link. And the advantage of that is that some people already worked on this subject, which means that the work done by these persons can help you. It can be of great benefit. So for instance, it can provide you with more data, or you can access only 8 women. And then suddenly you have an article when they speak about 20 women. Oh, good. 20 more. Really important, at least for your level, is example of methods. So to see how do people do research in the real world of academic research. So you will see later, but bibliography gives you access to, for instance, what kind of questionnaire, what kind of survey do they do. Once they have data, what do they do for statistics, for data visualization? So this is going to be really precious. Really important also, some results that you may find will help you to defend your assumption. So if, for instance, you investigate the case of women in Kabul, and you have an article that says, Kabul is a good example for other cities, and they show that, then it's good for you. You can come and say, you see, I chose Kabul, and this article says that Kabul is similar to the other cities, so my idea was good. And what is a kind of never-ending story is that when you have one article, each article, they have their own bibliography. So in each article, you have a list of other articles, which can be of interest for you as well. And of course, each article has other articles. So you have a link to many more articles. And you have also links, or let's say connections to researchers, which can be really precious because researchers are ordinarily really open to share about their methods and what they did. So bibliography is really something that I advise you to do if you are interested on the subject. Where do we find this? Many of these journals are, well, they are not free. There is a big debate, there is a big fight in the world to push these results to be free, and so there are many, there is a huge amount of documentation can be found on the internet for free. I give you here 5 links. So ResearchGate, Science Open, SagePub, Springer Open, and Archive, plus 2 links where you can find really specialized journals. So if you look for articles on child education, botany, psychology, some metallurgy, you will find it there, and they are for free. These links here will give you access to web pages where you can find free articles about almost any kind of subject. And we are going to look at one example with ResearchGate. So once you click on researchgate.net, it should look like that. I just advise you to do the following when you look for a document. So go to join for free. Then they will ask you, do you work in the scientific field? Of course, we all want to say yes. But if you say no, it's much easier because they don't ask you question and what you do, blah, blah, blah. So click on no. And by clicking on no, you arrive directly on the browsing section. So here you type keywords. For instance, I have typed Afghan women business, and if there are some results, they display you a series of articles on this subject. And you can see we have some titles. Struggling for survival, okay, understanding the economic and social constraint faced by, okay, Afghan refugee female in Pakistan, female Afghan engineers. You will just see here the first 3, but there are really dozens and dozens of them. For instance, I have identified 2 articles that could be interesting. One is Marketing Management and Optimist of Afghan Female Entrepreneur. The other one, Problems and Opportunities. So if you find articles like that who seems to be interesting, you can read the abstract. So the abstract is a short paragraph, a couple of lines, can be a bit bigger, but ordinarily it's fast to read. And the abstract summarizes the article. So it gives you an idea of how they did the work and the result. So if you like the title, you read the abstract and you like the abstract, then you can just download the PDF and start to read. In some cases, you can directly download it, like here, or you need to request it. Then it's not really a problem. You just click, and basically there is an email that is sent to the researcher, and the researcher will send you the PDF. As I said, researchers are really happy to share their work, so don't be shy, just request. You can see that you have also access to the names and the profiles of the researcher behind, which is always good, especially when you are on the way to make a research proposal, scholarship application. If you start to do that, probably you are going to fall into a typical pit of doom of articles, because there are so many articles that are absolutely fascinating in every domain. You are going to click on that and you will find one article that looks cool, and another one, and another one, and 20 and 100. I think I have 500 articles that I have downloaded and I've read so far. These articles are ordinary long, so some of them are maybe 2-3 pages, but ordinary they are 10-20, and they are complex. So it's not something that you read like that. So keep in mind that you don't need to download 1,000 articles. You don't need to understand, especially at your level, okay? If you were in a PhD, in a master student, maybe I will say you need dozens of articles. But here, okay, maximum 3 articles. For the lecture we do, for the course we do today together, maximum 3 articles. So select them wisely from the title and the abstract. And also quite interesting, learn how to read fast. Read fast means the ability to really go through paragraph, get some words, okay, bing, 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 next, bing, 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 next, bing, 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 okay. There are some methods to read really fast. But if you just take 1 or 2 articles, then you can just read at your own pace. If we look specifically at this article that I have selected, it really looks like a standard academic article with the titles, the names of the writers. Ordinary, you have also the institution. Sometimes you have also the contact email. Each journal may have a different aspect, but basically you're always going to find the same contents. So if you look here, for instance, this is the abstract, what I was telling you. So this one is quite big. It's well made because it's nicely organized, and you can find exactly what I was telling you, that first it must be a short question. So okay, short, maybe longer, but you see the whole work is summarized in a small sentence. And if you look about the abstract, you can see that the first point is purpose, so what they want to do. Later, of course, you have practical implications, social implications, so this is all about the validity of the question. So you argue, why did we choose to do this and why we think it is important. So you can see that they wrote that here. The specification, which can be found under the design, methodology, and approach. So you can see that here, for instance, primary data collection. So that it means that they really went on the field to ask persons, 238 women business owners via phone, 5 provinces of Afghanistan. So you really see here it's specific, and because it's specific, the assumption, and you see in here it's in limitations and implication. They said this research has its own limitation. Okay, sample size, data connection from female. Okay. So it's challenge. Yes, for instance, they say some cities had less representation due to security concern, especially in the Kandahar province. So you can see that they argue that the choice of the cities may not be representative for all cities. So it's not an excuse. They don't apologize. They just say, okay, we did the best we could. We got this. We have these results. But we are aware that it may not match everywhere. So once you are going to read that, you will see that you are going to focus on the design of the protocol. Protocol is going to be the next big word we are going to study. The protocol, so this is really the precise description of how the full project will be conducted. What I mean is that you see when they say here, okay, we have this amount of women, we are going to call them. So if you call them, you need to ask them questions, you need to prepare this question. This question, are you going to put them on an Excel file, on a piece of paper? Are you going to study them using what? Statistics? Doing tests? What are you going to answer? So you see everything, the data collection, data analysis, the protocol describe everything. So when you do a research project like that, you don't just call and then improvise. Everything needs to be prepared before. So this is why I want you to get acquainted with this kind of articles, that you get used to how they work, because this is going to give you examples of real methods. And these methods, really often, they depend on the question and the subject. For this reason, the assignment for the next week is first to keep working on your question. If you haven't worked yet on your question, so please proceed through finding one, questioning its validity, so defending the validity, specifying your constraints. Constraints is basically your level of freedom. Specifying the question as I describe it in the previously. And given this question, find at least minimum one article. If you can find one article that is close to your domain, it's going to be good. If you are really advanced, so for the classmates of you that are quite advanced, you can read the articles. So these academical articles you got from ResearchGate and others. And by reading them, you can start drafting ideas for a protocol. If on the opposite, you are lost or you're late or you don't know what exactly to do, don't stay alone. Okay, find a friend, find someone you like to work with, and work together. Okay, it's perfectly fine. You can work 2-3 persons together. And do not hesitate to contact me for a question. WhatsApp, email, Telegram, as you wish. Good luck.